I am here with Alexander Mercouris, editor-in-chief of Duran. Alexander, let's talk about the Orthodox Church in Ukraine. We've done a couple of videos on this in the past, and this is kind of one of those stories that develops every couple of months, and we get some more, insight as to what's happening in this story. It's a little bit of a complicated story, but I hope that you'll refresh our viewers once again as to how we got here, and then also break down what's happening now in this story, which doesn't really get much coverage, but it really should get some coverage because it's an important story. I mean, we are seeing the Orthodox Church being torn apart, and we have a lot of players in this. We have Russia, we have Ukraine, we now have the United States in Ambassador Pyatt. Many people may know that name because he was the person in charge of, or one of the people in charge, along with Victoria Nuland, of the Maidan coup. He is now the U.S. ambassador in Greece. And of course, we have now Greece getting into the mix. Alexander, one of the quotes that stuck out with me from one of the articles you sent me from mospat.ru goes like this. It indicates that what is happening to the schismatics in the so-called OCU is a schism within a schism. I thought that was a great way to phrase it. Explain what that statement means.
Yes, I think the first thing to do is just go a little bit back in time to explain to our viewers what happened. There is the Orthodox Church in the Ukraine. Ukraine is very predominantly an Orthodox Christian country. There is a Catholic Unionate fringe in the West, but most Christians in the Ukraine are Orthodox. And the Orthodox Church in Ukraine has historically had very, very close links to Russia and prays for the Patriarch of Moscow in its prayers, but it is autonomous from the Patriarchate of Moscow. Now, there are two breakaways from this Orthodox Church in Ukraine. One led by an individual called Filaret, who calls himself Patriarch of Kiev, and the other an entirely separate entity. These two breakaways have existed for quite a long time. Now, what then happened last year is that the Patriarch of Constantinople, Bartholomew, who is the most senior cleric in the Orthodox world, took it upon himself, and in my opinion, in gross violation of his of the rules and his own authority, to recognize an independent Orthodox Church in the Ukraine, distinct from that of Moscow and subordinated to himself. Now, this was not the Orthodox Church, the official Orthodox Church in Ukraine, which utterly rejected Bartholomew's intervention. It was instead a church that Bartholomew created by cobbling together these two schismatic churches. And it's important to stress that the leaders of these two schismatic churches have previously been excommunicated. And he took it unilaterally upon himself to lift those excommunications. In other words, to readmit these clerics into the Orthodox community. Now, what has happened is that these two churches, which Bartholomew recognized as the church in Ukraine, but which I should say no one else in the Orthodox Church, in the Orthodox world, has recognized as the official Orthodox Church in Ukraine. Those two schismatic churches have now split. So he brought them together, created this schismatic church, and now that schismatic church, which he calls the official church, and now that official, actually schismatic church has split and is having its own schism. And the reason it's having its own schism is that Filaret, who called himself the Patriarch of Kiev, insists that he is still the Patriarch of Kiev, and therefore he is refusing to recognize Bartholomew as his superior. And he's going around saying, well, there's no reason why Ukraine needs one Orthodox Church, it might as well have three. My church, the church that's answerable to me, Filaret, who claims to be Patriarch of Kiev, the church which Constantinople recognizes as the official church in Ukraine, and of course the actual canonical Orthodox Church, which has existed, continues to exist, to which the vast majority of Orthodox believers in Ukraine still adhere, and which still maintains its connection to Moscow. So a schism within a schism, exactly as you said.
What chaos. What chaos. What a chaos. Didn't Bartholomew see this coming? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That he went forward with this, and obviously it has now come to these schismatics.
Yeah.
Now arguing amongst themselves, because there's also, I don't want to say, there's also a lot of money here. You can't forget that. It's, from what I understand, Filaret may have anywhere of upwards 800 million euros underneath his schismatics church's his coffers. Yes. In the meantime, you have these schismatics, Filaret and this church that Bartholomew has somehow recognized. They're trying to confiscate land and assets of the canonical recognized church in Ukraine. So they're trying to actually take away property and church assets from the church that has been in existence for so many hundreds of years, which answers to Moscow.
I mean, this is it. I mean, I think increasingly and incredibly unattractively, this is increasingly looking like a fight over money, because of course the schismatic church, which has subordinated itself to Bartholomew and which he considers to be the official church of Ukraine, has very, very little property and very little financing. Filaret's church, the so-called Kiev Patriarchate, is the one, as you said, which has 800 million euros locked away. It's in its bank accounts, which controls the big churches that belong to this church in Kiev. And he is refusing to give all that up. That's really why he is insisting that he's still the Patriarch. And and both of these churches have been looking hungrily at the far greater property of the canonical Orthodox Church, the real Orthodox Church, I'm going to say, right, which has, of course, the vast majority of churches and church assets in Ukraine in its possession, because it has inherited them, because they have always been in its possession. So you have these two groups of people, greedily looking at each other, and it's frankly increasingly looking very sordid. And of course, Bartholomew should have thought this through. He clearly didn't, because I think he calculated that the Orthodox Church that he was going to get set up was going to get massive backing from the Ukrainian government, and also because he came under enormous pressure from the US, and the US pressure. Yeah. The US pressure is still there, but the Poroshenko government that Bartholomew was working so closely with has gone. And by the way, I think one of the reasons that the vote against Bartholomew was so overwhelming was because Orthodox believers in Ukraine were so angered by Poroshenko's interference in their church. But that's another story. But without that backing from the government in place, this thing is losing momentum and is degenerating into a fight over money.
Yeah, what Bartholomew has done is absolutely devious.
Well,
and
indeed.
It's stunning that he would have gone down this road. It really is. But let's get into the geopolitics. You mentioned the United States.
Yeah.
Bartholomew, of course, is closely connected to the Greek Church, the Greek Orthodox Church. Those two churches, the Constantinople Church and the Greek Church, are very close. And you now have Ambassador Pyatt, who I mentioned earlier, was the U.S. ambassador in Ukraine during the Maidan. It's no secret his hatred for Russia.
No.
He may be one of the most prominent Russophobes, one of the most prominent haters of all things Russian.
Yes.
And he was a key player in the Maidan, was Pyatt. And now he's ambassador in Greece. And there are some theories floating around that it is Pyatt working with Bartholomew to try and actually split Filaret out.
Yeah.
In other words, to create this schism so that it opens the path towards the other Orthodox churches saying, okay, we got this one schismatic out, the most controversial schismatic in Filaret. Now we can approve this breakaway church that Bartholomew is also supporting. And this is a way for Pyatt once again to bring geopolitics and his hatred for Russia into the Orthodox world.
Yes, I think, I'm sorry to say this, and I think that is highly possible, in which case Bartholomew and Pyatt have conspired together to engineer a schism in the church that they themselves created, which is most bizarre because only a few weeks ago or months ago, they were both working to bring Filaret into this new Orthodox Church that they were cobbling together, because Filaret controls so much of the money and so many of the assets. So it shows, firstly, if it's true, how devious they are, and secondly, how complicated their project has become, because it's not working out as they expected. Because the only reason they would do that, it seems to me, is because this decision of Bartholomew's to create this church in Ukraine, and it has been so strongly opposed right across the Orthodox world. Not a single Orthodox church has recognized it, apart from some churches, some church groups, Orthodox church groups in the United States. And the reason is, though, I mean, obviously, Filaret is indeed a deeply unpopular figure within Orthodoxy. He's very controversial. He's widely believed to have had KGB connections going back to the Soviet era. He's widely seen by many people as a corrupt person. But beyond all of that, I think a lot of Orthodox churches around the world were horrified at the way Bartholomew was acting as a kind of Orthodox pope, by decreeing whether, there should be a church, a separate church in Ukraine or not, which, of course, most Orthodox churches see as a massive invasion of their autonomy. The Orthodox world is not centralized like the Catholic Church. And the Patriarch of Constantinople is recognized in the Orthodox community as the senior bishop of the Orthodox world. He is not the leader. And the overwhelming feeling is that Bartholomew acted far beyond his powers in what he was doing. But it could very well be that Bartholomew and Pyatt, facing this opposition, are saying, let's get Filaret out of this church that we've put together. Let's get Greece, let's get the Greek church, over which we have great influence, to recognize as the official church of Ukraine what's left. And then that will hopefully open the way for other Orthodox churches around the world to follow suit. All I can say about that is that even if this tactic succeeds, which I don't think it will, it is a gross invasion of the world of orthodoxy by a ambassador, Geoffrey Pyatt, who is not Orthodox himself and does not come from an Orthodox country. And if the Greek Church goes along with all of this, because it's coming under government pressure to do so, then that is even worse, because it confirms the suspicion many people have about the lack of independence of the Greek government, led by Mr. Tsipras, and its willingness to do whatever the Western powers now tell it.
Yeah, I mean, if the Greek Orthodox Church does recognize this schismatic church in line with Bartholomew, I mean, it would be a shameful outcome for Greece It would probably drive a very big wedge between Greece and Russia, which is probably exactly what Pyatt is aiming for. And of course, they're trying to rush this through, from what I understand, because you do have elections in Greece come July 7th. And I think you're right. Tsipras probably is pretty warm to the idea. Number one, because Tsipras, folds to any sort of pressure whatsoever.
Yes.
Guy folds like origami. He doesn't have a backbone to stand up to any of these powers. But he's also at heart doesn't really care much about the Greek Church, being an atheist. To him, it's inconsequential. So I think it's a deal that Tsipras would be more than happy to go along with in order to please Pyatt in the United States.
Indeed so. And I think there are some people within Syriza who are actively hostile to the Orthodox Church. That is a history. There being a history of absolutely. So I mean, we know one mustn't overlook that. So but if it weakens the Orthodox Church in Greece, they won't be sorry. But of course, it is a very bad play from multiple points of view, because it will once again show to the Greek people in the run-up to the elections, which are now coming, that they don't have a government that is interested either in protecting Greece or in protecting their church. It's interfering in church affairs at the request of the US ambassador, who, as you say, is a man with a very, very dangerous history, and who was heavily involved in the Maidan events. And at the same time, it will damage relations between Greece and Russia, Russia being the great Orthodox country, which in the 1820s came to Greece's rescue and affected its liberation from the Turks in a war that most people are shamefully ignorant of. And I think a lot of Greeks will be very, very upset by this and will feel very angry at the direction of policy that Tsipras is once again taking. I mean, he came to power as a leftist who is going to stand up to the European Union and improve relations with Russia. He's ending up as a person who's capitulated completely to the European Union, does whatever the United States tells him, and is wrecking relations with Russia.
He's the ultimate integrationist, globalist, patsy I think we've ever seen. I mean, he's like Macron on steroids without the power of France.
Well, absolutely. I mean, the other thing to say is, I mean, from every conceivable point of view, one wonders why these people, Bartholomew, Pyatt, Tsipras, are persisting with this venture, because the vast majority of Orthodox Christians in Ukraine have stuck with their own church. Now that they're seeing this split underway, I mean, they're going to be even less attracted to joining this Bartholomew confected church that is, that Bartholomew and Pyatt and the rest are trying to impose on them. With Poroshenko gone, as I said, there's no real momentum behind this anymore. So, what is the point in all of this? Yeah. And yet, as always happens, these people, they double down on failed projects. We've seen this again and again on so many issues, but this is just one more of them.
Anything to hurt Russia. Alexander, very quickly, do you know where Zelensky stands on this issue?
Well, he's been virtually silent about it. I mean, one of the points about Zelensky is that, of course, he won the election, the presidential election, with an awful lot of Russian votes. He's a Russian speaker. His famous TV program, which he did, in which he played the president of the Ukraine, and which set him up for campaigning to become president of Ukraine, that was all broadcast in Russian. It was all acted in Russian. So he's shown very little interest in this affair. He doesn't, I think, at the moment want to break with the US and with the European Union. Quite the contrary. I think he's still exploring his options. But I don't think he is as keen on this project as Poroshenko was. In fact, I can definitely say at the moment he is not. And whereas Poroshenko was pushing for this church that, he and Bartholomew and Pyatt and all the others had cobbled together with everything he had, it seems to me that Zelensky is simply not interested in it.
All right. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of Duran, thank you very much. Guys, if you like this video, click on the subscribe button. Click on that like button. Click on that notifications bell to make sure you get notifications when we do publish a video. You can donate to us on PayPal, Patreon, and Subscribestar. That helps keep this channel up and running. You can get a copy of this video in audio format, so go to SoundCloud and iTunes and subscribe there as well. And of course, go to the Duran shop. Pick up some of our merchandise, some of our Duran gear. You can get a polo shirt. You can get a long sleeve like what Alexander is wearing. Or you could pick up one of our magic mugs, which will increase your IQ, your geopolitical knowledge, by a good maybe 10 points to 100 points. Who knows? It differs for everybody.
Well, indeed, Alex. I mean, how else would we be able to do these programs if we weren't drinking from these magic mugs? I mean, as I was explaining just before, I'm drinking at this moment Queen Anne tea with milk from this mug. And it's a beautiful mug. You can see what a beautiful mug it is and how perfect it is for drinking tea from it. It's a genuine porcelain mug, very elegantly made, with our double-headed eagle there, pointing to both the east and the west. 15 ounces. You can drink tea. You can drink hot chocolate. You can drink coffee, as my wife prefers to drink. I like to drink tea. I go through lots and lots of cups of tea. I drink tea while I'm reading. I drink tea whilst I'm writing my notes to myself about the things that, I'm going to discuss in our programs. And it is through drinking a mug like this that I have the energy and the confidence to appear every day on our programs and do our videos and provide you with all the enlightenment and all the answers that I am doing. And just to compare with the other mug, this is, of course, the mug of that great Orthodox city. This is a program where we've been talking about orthodoxy. That great Orthodox city, the greatest of all the Orthodox cities in terms of population, which is Moscow, where Alex and I first met. And you see the double-headed eagle there. And you see the St. George on his white horse slaying the dragon of fake news and untruth. And that's what we do. And my wife tends to drink from this cup. I have drunk from it once or twice. And it gives us the energy and the momentum to, as I said, be able to analyze and go on our programs and explain things as we do. And of course, I drink these mugs while wearing shirts like this. And my two polo shirts, I'm going to be acquiring more of these shirts because they're of amazing quality. They're 100% cotton. They're incredibly comfortable. You can wear them outdoors. You can wear them indoors. You can wear them to social occasions. I've worn them to a very, very exclusive reception recently with some very important people there, which one day I will talk to you all about, and that was outside. And as I said, it's absolutely perfect for that because it's so stylish. And you can see it's also got the double-headed eagle, like all the items in our shop do. So buy our mugs, buy our T-shirts, support the Duran, and help yourself by having some really high-quality, excellent things. The feedback that we're getting from our clients who buy them has been excellent.
That's right. It helps support this channel. And I'll let people in on a little secret. When Alexander goes maybe, 2 to 4 hours without drinking from the mugs, he doesn't know anything about geopolitics. No. He needs the mugs. He needs the mugs. He needs to drink from the mugs. So that's a little insider secret. The mugs are his source of strength. It's like a superpower, like one of those superheroes. It's all in the mugs.
It's all in the mugs. Here they are again.
All right. Alexander Mercouris, Editor-in-Chief of the Duran. Thank you very much. Until next time, everybody. Take care.